Hey, this is Amy from Motif Music Studios, and I am excited to be here today. I know that because this is a live stream, some of you will just be coming on now. So, hello, if you're already here, just say hello in the comments and we'll get started today. If you're here on the replay, this will have loads of value for you too, as we're going to be talking about fall planning for piano teachers. And if you're viewing this in a different season, it actually is applicable no matter what term you're planning for. So for me here at Motif Music Studios and alongside our team, I often do loads of the planning right away in the summer. And this year and the last few years, I've actually promised to myself that I would take the month of July off. So when I looked at the calendar, I was like, okay, it's June 30th. There's a few things that I wanted to have set in my mind before taking the month off so I could feel really good about that. So thanks for being here today. You can tell me where you are listening from. I know we're here on Vancouver Island in Canada, and it's a beautiful sunny day today, and I have plans to head out to the beach after this. So I will just work with whoever's here. If you have questions as we go along, be sure to jump into the conversation, whether it's on the replay, I'll circle back, or if it's here live. So I have my handy 2024 planner at the ready. So I decided to write prompts for this because I love having some sort of cohesive plan to follow. So we're going to just dive right into the things that I think about as a studio owner of we work with between 5 to 12 teachers a year. So the planning that I do impacts a lot of people. So we'll start right at the beginning here. So we're going to be tackling fall planning. And I hope that the purpose of this is just to lighten your load. So hopefully that will do that for you today. And I just popped in here that you're free to ask questions and we'll brainstorm on behalf of each other. So if there's a few of us that end up in here, we've got a lot to do. So the first thing that I do when I'm thinking about the next year is this year I actually wrote down what day I wanted registration to open. And I can pretty much guarantee in our community that the inbox will get quiet in the month of July. And that's been very predictable over the past 13 years. So I love that that's a bit of a peaceful time that I can rely on. So I look at my calendar and we have a long weekend in August that goes from the Saturday, the 5th of August, and there's a holiday Monday on August 7th. So let me know if you have some holidays in the summer. We also have Canada Day, and I know in the US, Independence Day is coming up. So let me know if you have some summer holidays. So why I love to know that. Oh, hello, Viviana. That's lovely to see you here today. So why I love to do that is my inbox will go dark in the month of July. And if I know when that August long weekend is, I usually make sure that the details are ready to send out for registration right before people get in their inbox on Tuesday, August 8th. So that's my little trick to feel kind of ahead of the rush, is to know that by August 8th, I want something calming and succinct to send to teachers or to customers right away. Hello, Heidi. Good to have you here. We're just getting started. I've got our planner, and we're just talking about how we can kind of predict rushes on inquiries with our calendar. So the first thing that I do, and let me know if there's anything you want to focus on today, but the first thing I do is set aside those dates. Now, I'd love to hear, when are you all starting teaching in September, or if you go right through the summer? So if you're going right through the summer, just let me know. Or if you're going to take a break for the holidays, what is the day that you're hoping to start back? So for us here at Motif, I used to actually start on the Labor Day on Monday because we had so many stat holidays on the Monday that it just felt like, oh, we better just get started right away. However, now being a mom of 3 kids and knowing that school programs will start. Even though we homeschool, there's just a lot more paperwork. So, and lots of our teachers were juggling family life too. So now I actually give ourselves and our clients a week of grace. We don't actually start this year until Monday, September 11th. So that's something in my planning. I brought my colorful pens here that I'm going to jot that right down, and I'd love to hear what your start date is. So Heidi says she's teaching 3 students through the summer, Wednesdays only. And that's lovely to have that predictable thing. I'll pop in with a few kind of flex lessons as well in the summer, but mostly off. What day are you starting your big start back, Heidi? Do you know that already? So I'm going to put start day is September 11th, and I'll just put start teaching. And then I'll give you a sneak peek at our calendar that we do for Motif. I don't know if this is helpful at all, but this is what we give to our customers here at Motif. So I'm going to share a slide here. Doo-doo-doo. Yes. So this is our piano calendar for the year. And you can see this is just an old one I dug out of the archives, but we often use a similar format. And so one thing that we do is once we calculate our start date and our end date for the year, we count up our Mondays first because there's so many statutory holidays. Some people would teach on those holidays, but we actually take them off now, except for sometimes one of them in the year if we have to even it out. And then you'll see at the very bottom of the Monday, it says there are no, it's really small font for me here. There's no additional flex days essentially. But then what we do is for if we can fit in, say, 36 Mondays between September 11th and the end of June, then we look for doing the exact same number for Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and sometimes we do a Saturday term. And then we will obviously have too many of those other days. Like we might have 39 Tuesdays or 38 Tuesdays or 40. And so what we do is we call them non-instructional flex days. And that's how we have flexible days for our staff to take off whenever they want. The clients haven't paid for them in advance. So it means that they get to just say, hey, it's sunny out. I need a day off, or I need a mental health day, or whatever the reason is. So I've talked a little bit about that in our policy one, but I thought I'd give you a look at that calendar. So Heidi, that's great. So you're saying you haven't decided, but you usually start right after Labor Day, but you like the idea of waiting one more week. Yeah, so today might be decision week for you, or decision day. So if that helps you, then that's great. So families are flexible. I find it not too hard to start on Monday the 4th. If communication is clear, you can start on that Monday, or you could start the Tuesday that school starts if you're needing that income of that week. But we do find there's a bit of grace in starting on the 11th. So this year we'll be starting on the 11th. The other thing that I like to consider is our teachers are hired as employees, which means they can have EI often in the summer, employment insurance. So that is sometimes helpful for them, that we have that extra week of breathing. If schedules wouldn't be as full to start with because it's a holiday weekend, then it's just nice to start full when we start. And oh, that's really neat to hear. So their teachers start on August 20th and students start on September 1st. Yeah, and that's neat that in the school. And are you referring to the school district or like a conservatory with that model? I love that. That gives just some extra grace, hey, to prepare. And sometimes as self-employed instructors, it's trickier to make those kind of gracious scheduling things happen. I know for me, I do expect to be in the office all month in August, right after the long weekend. And usually I can't resist getting in there on the 1st, so I feel prepared in advance. So that's really neat to hear from you as well. So then the next thing that I look at doing, I'll go to my notes so I don't get distracted and ask questions as you go on. Um, let's see. Yeah, so we'll just dive into the next thing. So firstly, I count up the days of the week. I have a clear plan of how many, and that impacts our billable. So the next thing I would look at is how are we going to charge for that? So now we know how many lessons there's going to be. And then we actually do a special thing with our billables is that we try to get away from thinking of that we're charging this much per hour. We charge more for the programs that we offer that are quite enriched. So then we would figure out about how many actual one-on-one lessons there are, and then we actually bill a smaller amount, but kind of the equivalent of 3 more lessons that is our budget for the workshop, the recital, the extra events that we host, and we can get into that. I have a whole list of ones we've done in the past. I actually found, like, about 13 years of lesson plans, and we usually do, like, 8 workshops a year, so that was fun to come across for brainstorming. So I see some more comments here. Oh, yeah, that's neat. It's a music high school and all teachers start August 20th. Perfect. So that's really lovely that you can get your feet under you before that starts, and it's a state school. That's really awesome. Okay. So once I have that schedule done, that helps our tuition schedule. And I didn't print that out because I was going to screen share, but I have some of the names of people on it and things. But we do a special spreadsheet. My husband is the one who takes care of all those details, which is great because I would just drown in that. And then we have our blank schedules. But let's dive in next on. I was loving a ponder that I thought I could ask you all about is this week, Christina from the Beyond Measure podcast. If you're not listening to that, you can mark that in your memory or in your notebook. And she was talking about things she doesn't do. So let's start with something that you don't do in your studio that maybe others do or that you don't want to do this year. So I'll start with mine, and you might chuckle all the time. Recital week was this last week, and I have always put so much thought and care into creating a program, like a visible program. And at first, it was a written program, and then we realized, oh, wow, there was so many changes working with 12 teachers. We had 220 students that changes would be coming in faster than I could make the edits and get it to the print shop. So stage one was a printed program at Motif back when we started in 2010. Stage two was that we thought of the idea of a PowerPoint presentation, and that worked brilliantly because we could create groups of performers. They come up to the front all at once, and then like we'd have 6 to 8 students come up to the front row, and then they'd take turns, and then we'd send that group back. So we'd have that on the PowerPoint slide. And that has served us brilliantly for many years. So I'd love to know if you do printed programs for recitals, or if you do a PowerPoint, or if you don't do one at all. So I'd love to hear that now in the comments if you have an idea about that. So this year, something came across that was what I love how Eric Branner from the Fons family group talks about pain points. So it became a pain point because the venue that we were renting said, oh, we now have to hire someone to transfer your PowerPoint slide onto PowerPoint, and we now don't let anyone else access that computer, and we need it by Thursday, which was a completely wonderful request. Thursday is great. The recital was on Sunday. But suddenly that pain point occurred to me is that on Thursday, families were still feeling kind of chaotic this year. They've just gone through dance in our community. There's award ceremonies at school. I hadn't had all the information that I needed to pass on by that point. So I thought either I can stress out and do an all-nighter, and I am prone to doing that, or I need to think of a new way. So I love that you're saying, yeah, you use printed programs. Fabulous. And they can be fabulous. So I love that. And Heidi here saying, you mailed birthday cards to my students this year. Sweet idea, but I found it really stressful to keep up with. Yeah, so thinking of things that you're maybe not going to do. And I love that we can celebrate something like right there. That was so sweet. It was so meaningful. But something that we do once doesn't have to be what we do for forever. And that's a a great reminder. And also not hearing too much. You're like, oh, they probably appreciate it, but maybe it got lost in the mail or maybe mom forgot to hand it on. And you're right. That effort that it took for you was monumental and it maybe didn't have the impact you were hoping for. So same for me. I love the branded look of the PowerPoint up in front at the recital, and there's lots of benefits to that. But this year, people hadn't given me the information. So I decided to try something completely different. So you'll see here, I have a load of wooden tags in a jar, and all of them have numbers on them. I was estimating we'd have 30 performers, possibly 35. And again, people were still making decisions. And if you're here from our student family, we love you anyways. But they were still deciding. So I wrote out these tags. It was really fast. I got them from Dollar Store, the wooden tags, and just used a Sharpie, put the numbers on. I put them in a jar. And this time, when students came in, they got to pick their own comfort level. Do you want to be near the front? Do you want to be in the middle? Do you want to be at the end? And then as they came in the door, we gave them their performance number and we were able to just go straight to a performance. We called up in groups because I had the sheet in front of me and it actually went really well. So I was surprised that I saved myself a lot of data entry, a lot of stress, and a lot of sleepless nights, and it went well. There could be some issues if I didn't know how many people were there because I really like a recital that's not more than an hour and 15 minutes, and we went over by about 6 minutes. So that's something I might think about in the future. So I love, yeah, Heidi saying exactly like we want to find things that serve us as educators to keep you renewed and feeling enthusiastic. And we also want to find the things that serve our audience the best and our music community that you're cultivating so beautifully. Yeah, thanks, Biljana. I always get your name wrong. I'm so sorry. Um, yeah, so that was such a great way to solve a problem. It actually saved us a lot of money because we would have to pay wages for the person behind there doing PowerPoint. So it actually saved us when I figured out how many hours it would take me and how many hours we had to pay, saved us $125 to do a jar of numbers and have people come in at the door. So then I could spend more time on other things and use the resources differently, like taking the staff out for dinner after. So it's just a fun way to do that. Thank you, Heidi, for recognizing. Yeah, it felt like a good solution. And like you with the birthday cards, I don't know if that's like the forever solution, and there might be a few ways I would tweak it. We did notice it was slower to get people in the door because everyone was signing up manually. So I might actually do it on two people doing the intake at the door to just speed that process up. But we did say it. Oh, I'm so glad I'm saying it correctly. That's lovely to know. Thank you, Biljana. So then the next thing I thought we could take a look at is um, what we can brainstorm. Let's dive into some solutions for you that are here live. Is there anything in your studio that you're going, oh, I wish I could figure that out today so I didn't think about it all summer. If you're an overthinker, can let me know in the comments whether you're here live or on the replay. I do tend that I don't feel like I'm a perfectionist. I definitely am not, but I'm kind of that closet perfectionist that does stew about things a very long time. And a lot of my work is in my brain. And I realize sometimes when we don't take action, we're actually depleting our resources because we're just in our minds so much. And I know, Heidi, you're a late night thinker too. And I don't know with you, Biljana, but I know that those are tricky things to navigate. Um, so some things that, um, oh yeah, so you can think on that and you can jot it down as a question for later too. The next thing I thought of is what is working in your studio? And that's another good clarifying thing. So I thought what's working in our studio well is I feel like everyone's in a good routine with scheduling. And that's the next thing I think about with teachers. And I actually do up the schedules for the teachers. I ask them what their dream schedule is And then that's my job in August, is like creating a really healthy schedule for teachers that works with the clients that we're taking in. And we've taken a very personalized approach to that. And again, it's something that has served us, although it's been hard, but it might not always serve us. And I have to let go of that if that changes. But as of this year, we'll be doing the same approach, which is I start with asking current students if they want to keep their old spot, then I'll keep them there as long as the teacher's availability is the same. And then I first intake our returning students, and then I move to the wait list. And it is a lot of juggling. The thing I do about with that that's kind of fun is my first email to families is very short. And I don't know if you've heard of Chantal Brunsema from the studio expansion group, but she talks about the magic of a 9-word email. It doesn't have to be exactly, but the concept of it is that we can reduce stress on our clients by speaking succinctly. And I love sending out an example like this. So, this might be something that is simple. And to our bigger mailing list, we have about 500, 600 people on our main list. So, want more music in your home? We can help. And literally, that email will go out with a button that they can click, that they can say, yes, please, I actually have been thinking about signing myself up for adult piano lessons or things like that. The other thing I do for returning students, I think this will be ours, is we say something like, send us your scheduling wish list, we can help. So they don't have to read a bunch of stuff. They don't have to feel flustered or stressed when they get that in the summer and they just want to be living their best summer life. They literally can look at an email and reply right away. Yes, we would love it. And we are so badly hoping we can get in on Monday afternoons again. Done. Then I can work on it on this side. So I often think of that for our client's perspective as how can we reduce their stress? So those are a few little tips that I use for those back to school emails. So Heidi says, my new policies I started last fall are working amazing. No makeups, etc. I love that you've created some boundaries around that. And again, it serves your customer well if you're feeling good about your schedule, if you're feeling great about your policies, then we're not giving out of a spirit of resentment. So sometimes that's like one of those pain points we were talking about is, oh, do we need to revisit this because I'm feeling resentful or I'm feeling exhausted, like I've made it happen, but it's come out of every drop of energy I have. So I love that that's serving you well. Um, Yes, work on shortening emails. So not all my emails are that short, and I admit I am the wordiest person out there. You can tell by the fact I'm here live that I am a chatter and I love to have, big exposés in my emails, but this has served me well to have at least some, and especially when you know your clients are stressed. So also in June, as we approach recitals, I know that the spirit of our community, I saw lots of frazzled parents in my inbox. And as soon as I hear that tone, and again, being an empath is a blessing and a curse for me, but I start to hear the tone shift and I go, ooh, I can help you by reducing the amount of words, by having very few points that people are trying to scroll on their phone and read a 900-word essay. And so that's something I do work on. However, there are other times of the year that there just is information to communicate. And in that case, I try to be really careful with spacing out the paragraphs well. And yeah, there's lots of tricks on that side too that I've learned over the years. So I love that that's relatable there for Heidi as well. So if you're just popping in here, I'd love to hear, are you a teacher working for yourself? Are you just coming to hang out and work on your schedule? Either way, we're glad to have you here. And you can give this stream a like or subscribe if you haven't already. And that helps let people know that you're finding value here, hopefully. So that's great. So this next year, sometimes I try to think of a word or a concept that informs my next year. And this is another thing I find really helpful in the planning stage is my ponder of this year again is thinking about ease for our families and ease for our teachers. Are we doing it because we've always done it or because it's still life giving and serving needs in our studio? So that's kind of my blanket statement. I've not trimmed it down to a vision statement, but in my mind, as I think of events this year, as I think of scheduling for the teachers and for myself, I'm going to think of ease. And so the first thing that would be is I like to talk to each teacher individually and say, how are your evenings with your family? Do you want to work and just work till 8, or do you need dinner breaks this year? Or how many breaks do you prefer this year? So there's some things like that that I personalize for the teacher. I find our extroverts will have more students in a row, and our more introverted teachers will prefer a break, even a break between every student. We actually have a teacher that loves that groove. And for me, I would feel like, oh, I'm kind of wasting too much time. I want to get back out into with my kids, but that pace works for them really well. So as you think about your schedule, knowing your needs as a teacher, or if you're scheduling for other teachers, that's another thing that can add ease into your next year. I don't know about you. Have you ever had one of those days that you accidentally overschedule? For me, Thursdays used to be a day that still now I think, "Oh, it's Thursday." And then I'm like, Amy, you haven't actually had that schedule for 13 years when you taught 15 students on a Thursday. But I still have this like moment of internal panic, even though once I started, I was totally fine. I didn't have kids. I worked till 9. I had dinner after then. It was okay. But obviously, it wasn't totally okay because I still think, "Ooh, Thursday, can I handle it?" Yes, you can. I have a very light Thursday now. So that's something that you can think about as you form your schedule and as you plan your events for next year is moving into ease. Another way that I moved into ease last year is we didn't do our Christmas recital. We had had 12 years of amazing Christmas recitals in a row. In a huge studio, we actually had about 85% attendance at our Christmas recital, and we always did it the last Friday of school before the Christmas holidays, so it didn't impede on that first weekend of the Christmas holidays. It was a Friday afternoon concert. But this year I realized that the way my brain worked is I always had to get through that recital around the December 18th or whatever. It was often right in there before I could plan Christmas for my own family. And I thought, oh, my kids are starting to be like, Mom, our house isn't decorated for Christmas and it's December 18th. Do you remember that it's Christmas coming? And I thought, you know what? I need to shift that because it takes so much inertia to do some of these wonderful things. And yet, it's okay if it changes for a season. So that's something I'll be thinking about. So I'd love to know if you do a Christmas recital or a special event. Um, I love that. Yeah, good thoughts on tailoring your schedule for next year. Good. I hope that's helpful because I find if you think about that now, again, it gives you the courage and it also gives you the courage to know you are serving your clients by creating boundaries that are healthy for you. Because the moment you move into that frazzled state where maybe by 6 o'clock you're running behind time and you're hungry and you feel a little faint and you feel more irritated with that high energy student that's coming your way at that time who's also frazzled, the moment that happens, it does impact your teaching. So by guarding your time and by creating schedules that really work to your strengths, you're actually giving your customers the very best of you. And that's something that I get into with pricing properly too, because that pricing properly means you're also working a correct amount for your energy levels, and that also preserves you as a teacher. So I'm pretty passionate about that as well. Oh, that's so neat. So Christmas recitals in a retirement home. And you know what, Heidi? That is so fabulous because we've done that, but not for years. And that actually might serve our clients this year because we did our first time back in the seniors home. So I'm going to put a question mark. So I love how we're teaching and being taught. I always say that, but maybe I'd consider a Christmas event in the seniors home. Although sometimes lately I've been avoiding flu season, so we did a spring one that was quite successful and everyone was feeling healthy and well. And that was easier on a big scale with a lot of students. So I love that. Um, Trends we are noticing, and again, this is about serving your audience. So, trends I'm noticing in our studio, dealing with lots of teachers and lots of studios or lots of students, is we're noticing a desire for relaxed programming and flexible options. And I put EAP there. I'm not noticing it as far as my students are very consistent coming to weekly lessons. We actually have students signing up for the whole music term. We have the most wonderful families starting in September, and most of them make it all the way to June. Sometimes, if we have little gaps like a percussion option or a guitar or something, then we might offer some like shorter packages, like a 8-week package or a 10-week package. But our consistency in lessons is very good, and attendance was very, very strong. But we're noticing for some of those event plannings, parents are getting lots of pressure on the sports and those team things. So I think sometimes those options for music and community start being the ones that get missed, right? So that's something that's in my mind is, okay, how can I create ease around event programming and options? So that's something I'm moving into there. Um, Oh, yeah, so you did a regular recital with hall decorations and lots of work, so you might do that again. Yeah, and it is lots of fun, and those can really be great, I mean, that's a great marketing thing for a studio too, if you're thinking on the business side of growing a studio. And one thing that I would do, again, if I was a solo, like now I have paid team that help me on recital days, although I still do so much behind the scenes that I get really worn out. Um, but if you're solo, also think one year we did a couple parent volunteers of parents that actually had owned businesses before. It was so successful, and I had them manning. We did snow cones before. We've done cotton candy. We've done strawberry tea. We've done lots of different recital things, but having the right help, or for me with the kids, I would have like a parent helper or a mommy helper that day to help out with childcare and things like that too. So I love that you're thinking about that and that it was a great success for your studio. Um, so we're looking at relaxed programming and flexible options. The next thing that I think of, once I've got my schedule, I've chosen my teaching days, I know how many I'm doing and how many I'm charging for. And this is important. Again, I don't talk lots about price in my with my customers, but so if anyone's hanging out here, you'll know that I do it for the good of the clients and for our teachers. But once I have my budget of how much we're billing for the year, and we have a special spreadsheet for that, that we can change the variables and go, okay, if we have 10 events, what's our estimated cost and budget for that? If we do 6, what does that look like? So once I have that, I decide how many events and how to pace them. So I'd love to know, in your studio, do you keep it simple just with the recital, or do you try to do any extra workshops or clinics or master classes? What types of those are you seeing? And Biljana, you've got the ones that are happening in a state school. Heidi, you're solopreneur. So I'd love to know about that. So at Motif, we've had kind of an enriched program where if students are enrolled at Motif, they are welcome to attend any of the events that we have. And then I try to rotate the types of events. So in the past year, we had online students, so I made sure there was always an online option. So for that one, we did an online practice club where people could come. I would help with building tools for practice. They would work on a section and then gather together. Other ideas we've done is a rhythm focus class that was all rhythm. So we're thinking bucket drums and boom whackers and rhythmic pieces, maybe Wendy Stevens cup rhythms, and the whole workshop would be focused on rhythm. Then we might do a whole workshop on improvising. We've done one that was on composing. One year we did a whole recital about featuring student composers, and you can see that these are the types of pieces our students were writing. Um, and so we had a whole concert where students played the pieces that they wrote, and we had their biographies up on the wall. And then we also had an option if there was students who didn't want to play their piece, but they'd written it. Then we had students were able to have someone else play their piece, a teacher or another student. So that's another type of workshop we did that year, was composition workshops, just to get that started. We were actually so fortunate to have Christine Donkin here in person back then for a composition workshop as well, which was super inspiring too. So I see we have some comments on that. Oh yeah, so Heidi said you do 2 recitals the week before each recital. We have group performance lessons instead of regular lessons. No other events at this time. That's brilliant. And I love that you've kind of taken a peek at like that dance school model of like rehearsals. And I do think those are really important. And that's something that this week we did our performance class 6 weeks in advance, and I did that performance prep theme. But I love the idea of having that rehearsal and all group class. And I love that you transformed your, yeah, you had group performance lessons instead of regular lessons. That's brilliant. So for, I'd love to hear if other teachers here have done that too. That's great. Um, So some of the workshops and special events that we'll be doing this year, this is a teaser. If you have a name for me, I love that I don't always get to, I try to include our teachers in the planning, and sometimes they're just so happy, like, Amie, just come up for ideas and we'll be there, we'll support you and we'll make it happen. But this was actually teacher Natanya's idea, and she thought about a Lego party that's like Lego building and playing for each other. So we're going to work that into our calendar, and that really served our need of having more flexible options that we can have just smaller groups of students. So we're going to have a Lego living room party this year. Another thing that was very successful for us was another living room format, which interestingly, we've gone from big venues, a big studio, but students were loving these more personal ones. And the living room music share for our adult learners was really great. I know some people have done it like a sip and share, but we have a few that we want to be careful with alcohol with. But anyways, so we have a living room music share, and we had goodies and refreshments, and we actually had them play background music in the other room, so we could visit and they could choose their comfort level if they wanted us to like listen or if they wanted us to chat. And that was something else that we had fun with this year. Yeah, Heidi, don't you think that's fun? And if you've been here on a regular basis like Heidi has, you know that I talk often about regulation, and Lego can be very regulating and stress reducing for students because they can just click stuff together. And even if they're just listening, then it's just such a beautiful way of incorporating something that's not too hard to facilitate. And I know I have buckets of Lego here at my house, so that's also helpful. Um, so we're going to do that. We're going to do the adult one. I interviewed Linda on this channel, and she does the paint and jam, and she has lesson plans for it if you wanted to do a community event with that. And I had already thought too that I'd love to do a paint night combined with music making. So I'm working on some plans for that to see where that might take me this year. Then the next thing that I look at when I'm planning, and I know this is a lot, so let me know if your brain is full and you're like, Amie, I can't take any more. I just have to write all this stuff down. But the next thing I look at for that big picture planning is skills-based programming. I find as a teacher that I used to teach about 55 individual students a week. And then when I was teaching also private group classes, I sometimes would have like 85 students a week. So I found I didn't do well in like having themes all over the place. I had to pick like a vision, like, okay, my theme of this term is rhythm. And then I would just make sure that I touched on rhythm and boosting rhythm skills and checking in on notated rhythm and, fun, different like percussive ideas with all my students. So at their own level, they would all get a boost of rhythm. So sometimes when I'm programming for the whole studio, I might look at something that I think might be a struggle. So, for instance, at the recital this year, I noticed we've been teaching so much online, and I noticed if I was to pick a weakness, I thought about pedaling, and I thought, okay, I'd like to add in a little more care to the students for pedaling. The other thing that often gets behind in a big studio with when you're trying to just focus on repertoire and families are busy is that theory can fall behind. So in the past, we've done music theory clubs, and I might bring that back too because I'd love to see some students make sure that they don't get to grade 7 or 8 piano and then suddenly are needing to start harmony and history and they still have rudiments to finish. So sometimes I take a look at that kind of barometer of where students are at and if there's a skill I can focus on. So I'd love to hear from you if there's a skill that you think of, like, is there anything that for your students you think, ooh, maybe I've not addressed that? So for me, some of the ones I did last year, and I did about 5 in my own teaching that wasn't studio wide, I focused on a little kind of 6 weeks of rhythm, 6 weeks of sight reading where they're sight reading to a track or duets or quick study pieces that are really boosting the amount of repertoire they're playing and boosting their sight reading skills. I also focused on, I'll see if I wrote some of these down. I might not have. Oh, yeah, so here's I did do that. So rhythm, sight reading, I did a scale technique started in January. We did a scale of the week, improvisation, and performance. So those are some of the things I touched on last year. And then this year, I think I'll add a pedal workshop to that because that's always, there's so many fun nuances with pedal. And actually, that would be a great one to check out from the vibrant music teaching community. I know some composers got together with Nicola Canton's work there and did some special pieces to do with pedaling. I think that also was a prompt for me. The next thing I might look at is repertoire themes across all levels. And that's something that ties into the focus of this channel has been also telling you about great composers doing great things in the world of music. And so I'll look at repertoire themes like, oh, do I want to add more rote repertoire or do I want to add more pattern pieces or more jazz or so I'll start thinking of that now too and I have quite a list on my mind. Um, yeah, so Heidi says last year you were focused on posture at the piano and focusing on quality and consistent practice. Pedal would be great too. Love that. Yeah. And that reminds me that we as well were focused on that quality practice. And I love that I got into that with Amanda Tarot this year talking about atomic practice. And that really informed that, like, hey, we can actually help teach our students to practice because that doesn't always happen, right? And it's a new day and age for that. And memorizing music, and that's one I need to do as well because memory is not one of my strong points. I'm very that's an area I struggle with. And so sometimes when we have our own little struggle points, then it's good to just double check if we're making sure that we're still informing students and building those skills for them. So I love that so much. So we only have a couple more things. Does anyone have a question or something they'd like me to cover when it comes to planning for next year? I know I will have so many ideas after this. I'm going to jot these down. I actually did jot them all down in a Google Drive so that I'm ahead on my planning from just the work this morning. I also this year I did play around with making a little summertime list, and I'm happy to share that when I get it done, and for some reason, it's not showing here. Oh, yeah, I just started this piano, checklist, and I'll add some things to it after this stream, and it was just things that I do in the summer to double check that I'm where I need to be. So that's another thing. Oh, neat, yeah. Oh, good to have you here. It's lovely to have you here. And from Souk, that's so cool that you're on the island too. Wonderful. Yeah, so we're just enjoying thinking about things that will take away some stress this summer and help us just feel so much better when we're taking some time off. And yeah, you're working on your summer to-do list as well. And that just, again, I like to think about it if we circle back to that ease and simplicity, sometimes just getting that on paper, so we're like, "Oh, it's not as much as I made it be in my head." And I do have some stressors over, say scheduling for 12 teachers on my own each year for a decade was a little bit epic. So sometimes I make it into more than it is, and sometimes it is just a lot. But kind of getting it written down does help with that. And I've had some help in recent years. I won't have help this year, but I've had a few years of respite with the scheduling part with a wonderful assistant that I worked with. So then the last thing is repertoire wish lists, and I've been diving into the works of contemporary composers, and I am going to be more laser focused with what I have because, as you know, I have so much music here. So I'll be drawing from lots of music that I have already. But I do have a few things that I'd like to add to my library, but I'm going to be very careful with that. So I'd love to know, do you have any resources that are on your list as we wrap up? So here's mine. I am looking at Ricker's Easy Patterns and Perfect Patterns because I love doing rote repertoire first thing with my students. And I also use it as those enthusiasm boosters if I see a student that's struggling or one that's had like a lot of extracurricular and they haven't been practicing as much. I love that we can have so much success by sitting down, learning a piece together, and they leave being able to play it for the whole week because it's in their fingers. So rote repertoire will be on my list. Angeline Bell has a new collection coming out called My Garden Notebook that's more for the earlier learners. Her quirky notebook and lyrical notebook were for intermediate and late intermediate. So I have this on my list when it comes out. I will want to use it. Susan Staples Bell, I have her Castle um, Tales collection for the intermediates, and it's fantastic. I used it lots at the end of the year and had the studio license for that. But I'm eyeing up her elementary series because it sounds so mature and wonderful. I also, on my list of repertoire that I would love to get Christopher Norton's Christmas repertoire. I didn't even really realize that he had some, but I listened to some last year and thought, ooh, that's on my list, as well as his Eastern preludes and Latin preludes. Those are on my mind for kind of intermediate, and I have some students that will love those. So I'd love to know if you already have those books. And then, of course, there's hundreds of other composers, and like Biljana's here today, and your nocturnes are on my list for purchase because they are absolutely stunning, and I finally have some students moving into those advancing levels that will really, really enjoy that. So just as we head out, a few more Little Peppers from Elisa Milne is on my list, and Ben Crosland's Cool Beans. And other than that, if you are looking for more organization and a way to maximize your time, Amy Chaplin from the Piano Pantry has a podcast and a fabulous blog, and she really is your organizational guru bestie, and I have loved following her stuff. She also has a Plan With Me, a whole 3-day retreat style online where she helps you get all your digital resources organized, so that's something I would recognize. It's linked here, and you can circle back to this link, and I'll try to add those as well in the comments once this live stream is done. Oh, you're so welcome, Biljana. I just love what you're doing over there. So that is it for today. Thank you so much for being here. That was a lot of information, but it has me inspired to finish up my calendar for the year. I'll be using this calendar is what we always have, and I just have to change the dates in it, and then that's one and done. And so if you have little things like that too, that you do a really nice job, my husband designs our stuff like this for me, and it means that you can use it again. So sometimes things don't serve us and we don't use it again, but sometimes it does, and I really love that. Um, and that's okay. That's okay that you missed most of the stream, but we'll try to join in again 10:30 a.m. PST here on YouTube, which is great. And oh yeah, you'll love it. The Piano Pantry, such fabulous encouragement over there, as well as the Beyond Measure podcast with Christina, and she's doing some great pedagogy things with high school students. So if you have students that are wanting to teach and need some support, that's another good resource. So thanks for being here. I hope you guys have a lot of inspiration in your planning. Message me anytime, email at motifmusicstudios@gmail.com if there's anything we talked about and you want to dive in more, or if you want to see any of the stuff we have behind the scenes. And oh, that means so much. Thank you so much, Filiana. And you say that many things are similar here, but new ideas. Yeah, it's fun how lots of what we do is similar, but I know myself too. It is encouraging sometimes to feel like you aren't alone. And that's been really beautiful for me because after a decade of raising my kids at home, and even though we had the studio, so much of my job became the inbox and the administrative stuff that I really lost that chance of connecting with other people. So I just think you all are giving me such a gift to come and hang out with you guys on Friday. So really appreciate it. So we'll see you all next time. Have a wonderful Friday. And I hope that this will help in making for a less stress fall ahead for you. We'll see you again.